Breaking news from around your world on this Friday, July 12th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. New Orleans residents stocked up on supplies and prepared their homes on Friday as a strengthening tropical storm Barry threatened severe rain and flooding when it comes ashore as possibly the first Atlantic hurricane of 2019. Barry packed maximum sustained winds of 65 miles per hour on Friday morning, and the National Hurricane Center said it will likely strengthen into a hurricane with winds of at least 74 miles per hour by the time it reaches the central Louisiana coast on Saturday. It was forecast to bring a coastal storm surge into the mouth of the lower Mississippi River that winds through the heart of New Orleans, pushing its crest to 19 feet on Saturday. That would be the highest since 1950 and dangerously close to the top of the city's levees at 20 feet. New Orleans is already saturated after torrential rains flooded streets on Wednesday, but the New Orleans mayor said no evacuations were ordered from the low-lying city. Governor Bel Edwards said there are three ways Louisiana floods: storm surge, high rivers, and rain. We're going to have all three. President Donald Trump declared a state of emergency for Louisiana, and the region's oil production was cut in half as energy companies evacuated offshore drilling facilities as a precaution. Federal agents arrested singer R. Kelly in Chicago Thursday night after a federal grand jury handed down a 13-count indictment earlier in the day. Joseph Fitzpatrick, a spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois, said the counts include child porn, enticement of a minor, and obstruction of justice. These are the first federal charges against Kelly, who also faces sexual assault charges in Illinois, to which he has pleaded not guilty. He was acquitted of state child pornography charges in 2008. A law enforcement official told the New York Times that Kelly will be moved to New York, and prosecutors in Brooklyn will announce further details on Friday. Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta resigned Friday amid fresh scrutiny of his handling of the sex abuse case against financier Jeffrey Epstein, becoming President Trump's latest advisor to leave the administration in controversy. Acosta, joining Trump at the White House before the president left for a trip to Wisconsin, said he did not want to be a distraction to the administration's work because of his leadership of the Epstein case more than a decade ago. Trump, who has fired numerous cabinet and other administration officials during his 2.5 years in the White House, said it was Acosta's idea to step down. Acosta's resignation is effective in 7 days. Trump named Deputy Labor Secretary Patrick Pizzella as the acting Secretary of Labor. Meanwhile, more than a dozen new victims have come forward to say they were sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein, now awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges, according to the Miami Herald. Palm Beach attorney Jack Scarola said he and a colleague have been contacted by 5 of the women. Scarola said, "The people we are speaking to are underage victims in Florida and in New York. They are not individuals whose claims have previously been part of any law enforcement investigation." Epstein was arrested in New Jersey on Saturday. His lawyers proposed letting him await trial at his Manhattan townhouse under a $77 million bond package and said the new charges stem from allegations resolved years ago in Florida. China's foreign ministry said President Xi Jinping urged President Trump to ease sanctions on North Korea during their meeting on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Osaka, Japan last month. China has signed up for strict UN sanctions following North Korea's repeated missile and nuclear tests, but has also suggested sanctions could be eased to reward North Korea for good behavior. Xi and Trump have both held talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un recently. Xi before the G20 summit during a trip to Pyongyang, and Trump after the summit when he met Kim at the demilitarized zone along the North's border with South Korea. The U.S. State Department hopes to see a freeze in the North Korean nuclear program as the start of a process of denuclearization ahead of fresh talks with Pyongyang supposed to take place later this month. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un has been formally named head of state of North Korea and commander-in-chief of the military in a new constitution observers said was possibly aimed at preparing for a peace treaty with the United States. North Korea has long called for a peace deal with the U.S. to normalize relations and end the technical state of war that has existed since the 1950-1953 Korean War concluded with an armistice rather than a peace treaty. A previous constitution simply called Kim supreme leader, who commands the country's overall military force. Previously, North Korea's official head of state was the president of the titular parliament, known as the Presidium of the Supreme People's Assembly. Kim shifted his focus to the economy last year, launched nuclear talks with the United States, and moved to revamp his image as a world leader via summits with South Korea, China, and Russia. More than 36 people were injured on an Air Canada flight to Australia after experiencing turbulence. Air Canada Flight 33 was diverted to Hawaii after 37 people were injured, including 9 who were hospitalized with what officials described as serious injuries after experiencing unexpected turbulence over the Pacific Ocean. Passengers said the turbulence occurred about 4 hours into the flight. The plane suddenly jerked downward and launched some passengers out of their seats because they hadn't buckled their seatbelts. The flight originated from Toronto and took off from Vancouver International Airport Wednesday night with 269 people, including crew members on board. President Trump said Thursday he was ending his push to add a citizenship question to the 2020 U.S. Census, reversing his vow to keep fighting, even though the Supreme Court blocked the change. Trump said he would shift gears by signing an executive order instructing federal agencies that collect information on citizenship to send all requested records to the Commerce Department so it can come up with figures on citizens and non-citizens in the country. Trump said, "We will leave no stone unturned." The Commerce Department started printing forms for the 10-year census last week, even as the Justice Department said it had been told to find a way to add the question that was consistent with the Supreme Court ruling. India will try to become just the 4th country to make a soft landing on the moon after its Chandrayaan-2 mission takes off Monday. India's space agency is making final preparations over the next 3 days before a liftoff from an island in the Bay of Bengal. Officials said the spacecraft will take 2 months to get to the moon, first going into orbit 60 miles above the lunar surface before deploying the Vikram lander in September. Once the Vikram lands, it will release a 6-wheel rover to study the environment in the moon's south polar region. The Indian Space Research Organization said, "The aim is to improve our understanding of the moon, discoveries that will benefit India and humanity as a whole." The countdown will start Sunday with liftoff scheduled for 2:51 a.m. Monday. If the mission succeeds, India will join the U.S., Russia, and China as the only nations to have made soft landings on the moon. Israel attempted to put down a lander in April, but a technical glitch sent its spacecraft crashing into the lunar surface. Coffee brewing giant Starbucks announced Friday it will stop selling newspapers in the cafes at U.S. stores in September. Starbucks said the decision was made due to changing customer behavior. For years, the Seattle-based chain has sold physical copies of the New York Times, USA Today, and the Wall Street Journal on cafe newsstands. All 3 will be removed. A spokesperson said, "In addition to the newspaper stands, we will also be removing shelving fixtures that display whole bean coffee and different grab-and-go snacks." One potential problem with the papers is customers mistakenly believing they are complimentary. There are 8,600 Starbucks locations in the United States. And that's your update for this Friday, July 12th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.